My name is Diane Lupke, and I am president of Diane Lupke and Associates. We are a general economic development consulting firm based in Wisconsin, but we work across the country. Well, you know, my work really has a theme. It has a theme. It's based on the things that I have liked doing, that I felt challenged in doing, that really I feel passionate about. And so the way I talk about it is I talk about working with communities in transition. And I started out my career working in very highly urban areas, high levels of distress, high levels of poverty, businesses, aging businesses, truly in transition, maturing, many going out of business. And so starting out in those highly urban neighborhoods, distressed areas, and over time that has transitioned. As I have matured, as I have learned more, I've begun to see the connections between rural areas and urban areas. And so there are many things about a rural area that mirror themselves in a highly distressed urban area. So the same kinds of isolation, the same kinds of disconnections between the regional economy and the local economy. So that's kind of my focus, are these areas in transition that have pieces of elements of distress, of change, of people needing to come together and make a difference. Well, let me start out by saying, you know, one of the things that I've been in economic development now for 30 years and have worked in a lot of different areas. But I think that at the beginning of my career, discussion of economic development was about creating jobs. And we looked at that as the hard thing to do. It's hard to create jobs. But once you do that, you find out that's the easy work. That the easy work is creating the jobs. The hard piece is creating jobs in the places that you want them to be, creating jobs that the folks who live there are able to take, creating jobs that drive your economy, that pull different pieces, all the things that seem disconnected, help make those things connected, and therefore begin to leverage each other and drive the economy. That's the hard part. But you don't see that right away. And so the way that I approached that work was very different over time too. So initially it was, you know, providing an incentive to a company to create that job. Over time you begin to see how it's a much more complex, much more comprehensive kind of work that you bring together. And the other thing that I learned beyond that was, besides that it was complex, that it required a lot of different tools and activities, it also required a lot of different people. So it wasn't just something that the government could do, it wasn't something that the private sector could do on their own. That driving that economy, creating that prosperity, was creating it for people, for the people who live and work in a community, and bringing all that together. I would say get as much experience as you can. You know, work in all the different areas that you have an opportunity. Take any of those, because it is all those different pieces that you're likely going to need in any given opportunity. I'd also say do the things that you love, that you feel passionate about, because really that's how I got into economic development. That's how my career has been driven on those pieces, you know, doing the things I wanted to do, that I thought were important, that I thought made a difference, learning from the folks around me, but bringing those pieces, all those different pieces together, and all of that's been really helpful. I had a mentor at my college. I went to Earlham College, which is a Quaker institution in Indiana, small liberal arts school. And then I went to Indiana University. And so I had mentors both at Earlham College who really helped me to think beyond economics or beyond business and look at the connections between things and among things. And so that was a very early look at that cross-disciplinary work that works within a complex environment. So that was really helpful to me. And then in graduate school at Indiana University, the School of Public and Environmental Affairs, Barry Rubin was one of my early instructors. And it was interesting because I was simultaneously his best and his worst student. And I think that that was instructive for him as well as for me, to understand the things that I was truly brilliant in and the areas where I was going to need a little help to understand how these things worked. But it helped him grow as a professor, and it helped me understand what I really could bring to the profession, how the complexities within my own knowledge about economic development. There are a few things, I think, on a really individual level, on a small level. I think it is something that doesn't happen a lot, but when you are in a really distressed environment, working with a group of people who have seen negative outcomes over and over again, and they have been led down a path, perhaps, that is not where they feel tricked. They feel tricked, that they've not gotten the jobs, they've not seen the new development within their community, whatever those things are, but they have not felt part of the growth in the economy, and they felt beside the point of all of that. And it's working with those individuals and helping them to understand what they bring to the table, that they have to be, for them to participate in the larger economic success of the region, they have to understand what they bring to the table. What are their assets? And you start out with their feeling that they bring nothing to the table, that it's got to be something that comes from the government or comes from a big business, and helping them to understand that they are their own assets. They are one piece of the success of that whole neighborhood, and seeing that begin to happen. I think that's one of the things that really moves me, that helps me to commit to something that's a long-term kind of project. I did have a project that I thought was really interesting at the early part of my career, and that really brought me to IEDC, actually, too, or QED at that time. And it was, I was the first director of a program, Enterprise Zones, an old program from the late 70s and early 80s. And we approached it largely because of what we had talked about earlier, that mentorship that I had in graduate school, understanding all the different pieces from my education and bringing those things to bear, and to a new job where there wasn't really very much infrastructure underneath me. So I went out and actually talked to businesses, and I spent every day driving up and down the state of Indiana and talking to individual businesses, saying, this is what we're trying to do. How can we really help you? How would you be able to hire more people? How would you be able to expand? What are the problems that you are seeing that cost you more money? And we listened to those things, and we actually then put in place legislation that did exactly what they said they would respond to. And it was amazing. It was an amazing change. And in little Indiana and all these horrible little distressed places, you saw businesses make investments that they said they would make and hire the people that they said they would hire. And it was really a great change. It was small, but it really made a difference. It's had a huge impact. It really has. And I talk about that when I do training. The very first conference I went to was a CEcD conference, because I was out on my, I was working for a state government, but there weren't very many people. I was the only one doing what I was doing. And so there was nobody in state government to help me know what to do. And so I got the approval to go to a conference, and I talked to the other states in the country who were trying to do similar things to what I was trying to do. And so that first conference created the network, the beginnings of my network in economic development that helped me get through problems within my own job, as well as in economic development in the work I was trying to do. I really believe in this work. I do. I think that we can make change. I think we have made change. We do lead from behind. I mean, that is a real thing, to be able to facilitate. Some of our best leaders in the profession talk about our most important role as being facilitation. And it is being able to bring folks together who would not have talked before. So maybe we are not out front of this work, but that facilitation is so important because it brings people together who wouldn't in their everyday lives come together. And it is just that network that we create, the opportunity that we create, bringing a business, a funder, an innovator, the university, a community group, bringing all these folks together over and over and over again is what starts that process going forward. All of the success that we have is from that one-on-one conversation that we create to happen. So it makes real change. When I became a consultant, one day I was a banker and the next day I was a consultant. It was not something I had thought about doing ahead of time. And so when I got to my 10-year anniversary as a consultant, I thought, this is a big milestone for me. This is huge. I never thought I'd be a consultant, would have my own business, would employ other people. So this was big for me. And so what I did was look at the areas that I felt were important to work in and the resources that those folks had. And it is just those people who need education the most. Those working in rural areas, in enterprise zones, in high crime or high unemployment places, isolated areas. They're the ones who need education the most. And so it seemed to me that this was the best way for me to make more change, is to help our profession to build its capacity, especially in the areas that were most challenged. So that was my genesis for the scholarship fund. And I was lucky. I had a good year. I was able to put some money into that scholarship, and I've been so fortunate that people have been willing to contribute and add more resources over the years and over the decades now. So it's been a really great thing for me, and I'm so pleased that others have embraced it as well.